Outgoing Mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, and members of his staff will be testifying today at the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. Ottawa City Manager Steve Kanellakos is testifying right now. Let's listen in.
And it says, if we go up a little bit more, all open source information and our interactions with organizers indicate that this will be a significant and extremely fluid event that could go on for a prolonged period. And that is under current information, the first bullet point there. And so if we go up, it looks like you received this email as well. Kim Ayotte forwards it to Steve Box and to Beth Gooding, and then Steve Box forwards that to you.
That's correct.
And you recall receiving this at the time?
Yes, I do.
And if I can take you to OTT 538. And this is dated January 26th. It's from Riley Brockington. I understand he's a counselor.
Yes.
And he sent this to you and to some other people at the city, including Diane Deans, who was the chair of the OPSB at the time. Is that right?
That's right.
And in his email, he says, in part, this isn't just going to impact downtown, but the entire city region. Many are now saying, shut down the city until the restrictions are lifted. This is going to last more than a weekend. The OPS today estimated 1,000 to 2,000 to protest. No way, expect many more. So when he says that OPS today estimated 1,000 to 2,000 to protest, given that this is on January 26th, is it fair to say that in the briefing that was given to council and to you and the mayor on the 26th of January, this was the number that was provided to council and to you about what to expect in terms of numbers?
Well, the numbers, I mean, this speaks to the information that we had heading into the first weekend. And the information the city was receiving, even though we did receive information from other parties, such as the hoteliers, was pieces of information that was fed into police. Police were responsible and are responsible and have the access to the intelligence and the information across the country at the federal and provincial level to make the risk assessment that we all need to participate in to be able to respond appropriately. So all of this information, it was moving around. I think early emails had 200 to 300 or 50 trucks, and then it kind of escalated as the week went on, I think from about January 24th on. And the numbers were growing and they were varying, and there was different pieces of information coming in. We rely on the police to gather that information, collate that with all of the information they have, and make a risk assessment to provide to the city in terms of the strategies they're going to take to mitigate that risk. And so from my point of view, and I've been doing this a long time in terms of dealing with emergencies, it wasn't unusual to have a variance in the views of people who thought it was going to be bigger, longer, smaller. There were all kinds of opinions on what that would be. The only information we could rely on was the Ottawa Police in terms of reliable information at that time.
And so in terms of the city's planning for this event, what basis did it plan on? Was it on the basis of a prolonged stay that could last 30 to 90 days, as the Hotel Association was suggesting, or was it on a different basis? The
basis from Ottawa Police and our work, because we were an integrated team, was based on through the weekend and maybe into the following week till Wednesday was the initial assessment heading into that first weekend. There wasn't an assessment that said it would go longer than that. Okay, so then it would have been until maybe February 1st or so, or 2nd? I don't know I don't have a calendar from me, but that first Wednesday was when they thought the last of them might leave. Okay. And the majority of them leaving after the weekend? That's right. Okay, and this was information provided to the city on the 26th of January? That's right. And who provided that information? Ottawa Police. Chief Slowly was providing that information. I think we also had emails and documentation in our EOC shared from the National Capital Regional Command Center participants. heading into that weekend.
And so in that week and in that meeting, did anybody from the city say, well, you know, we have different information. What's the plan in case this goes on for longer? It could potentially go on longer.
No, because I think the one thing that, from my experience, and I think from the people that have worked with Ottawa Police for a long time, Ottawa Police has extensive experience dealing with demonstrations in the national capital. They do that on a regular basis. Sometimes it's almost weekly. So there's a lot of confidence, and they've done it well over the years. Over the last 20 years that I've been involved, they've handled those demonstrations very well. And people had confidence in their assessment of the situation to guide us in terms of what to expect and what posture we should be at to be able to deal with the risks that were being proposed.
And so in that meeting, it's fair to say there was no discussion about conflicting intelligence or conflicting information about the duration.
It's just vague for me, but I believe people were talking about the what if situation, should they stay, but I don't recall the specific discussion.
Okay, and so did it concern you then that you're hearing from other people that this could be longer, but the planning is only for the weekend?
No, based on my experience, that was pretty normal to have a variety. Almost every protest we've had, whether it was the G8, G20, the farmers' protest, the numbers vary widely leading into the actual protest event. That is a normal situation in my experience.
Okay, so you were confident then that the city was prepared and that OPS was prepared?
I was confident that we were prepared for that first weekend with the assumption that they were leaving after the weekend.
And so how did that first weekend go in terms of what you expected and what actually happened?
Well, based on the assumption that they were going to leave after the weekend, we all thought it went quite well. There wasn't any violence. People were protesting. It was managed. There were no major incidents that weekend, other than the honking. There was a disruption to the neighborhoods, but from the perspective of if they would have left after that weekend, it probably would have been very much an insignificant event compared to what it turned out to be.
Now, there are documents that suggest that the city was upset about certain incidences that weekend, such as the National War Memorial being desecrated, the Terry Fox statue as well. Did that raise any concern for you?
Well, we were concerned, obviously, by some of those behaviors and what happened. But in my timeline, if it would have ended after the weekend, they were unfortunate incidents, and they were dealt with, and everybody would have moved on, and we would have cleaned up the city heading into the following week. So from the perspective of was that first weekend managed perfectly? They never are. Were there incidents? There always are. Was there any extreme violence or anybody seriously injured? No. Was there incredible disruption to the people that lived in downtown, and other people were disrupted by the physical presence of the vehicles, the noise, the fumes? Absolutely. But in my window, 3 days of that, we could have got past that.
Okay. So I want to take you now to OTT 10560. And these are text messages between you and former Chair Deans.
All right, we're listening live to the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act in Ottawa. We're listening to Ottawa City Manager Steve Kanellakos testifying. We're expecting to hear as well from the outgoing Mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, and some other members of his staff. We'll go back throughout the day to those hearings.